So hi everyone, welcome back to Matt and Katarina's Mount Colah Garden. So we're doing a live feed this morning on reducing household waste. So probably a good live feed to be indoors for, considering it's raining today. But I thought I'd just mention why are we talking about this topic on the Edible Garden Trail? Well, you go to so much effort of producing all that wonderful food out there. It's great to be able to use it to its most, and just to make sure that it's going to good use. But also, some of the ways that we reduce that waste enable the garden to grow. So a lot of it goes back into compost and food for some of our animals. So it's really good for the garden as well. Third reason, it's just great to reduce the amount of waste that's going out there. There's so many environmental problems from the amount of waste that we get rid of, the amount of stuff that's just ending up in and being exported to other countries is ridiculous. So there's probably a lot of other reasons. I'll leave those in the comments to share some of their reasons for reducing waste, but that's a little bit of why we do it. So let's head on in, because we're going to spend most of this time inside, particularly in our kitchen area, talking about some of the things we do there. So hi Sandra, welcome. Thanks for joining us. So
Hello,
here we have
everyone.
Katarina.
Yeah.
So we'll start off just with how we do some of our food preparation in order to minimise waste. So Katarina, what are some of the things that we do to make the most of our food wastage?
We're starting with the food. So whatever I cook, I have to think, what do I do with the scraps? What do I need? How do I use it? So you start with people first. Can I reuse it for us, for leftovers? The most famous thing is probably making the stock, which I did yesterday because I
Our
had
beautiful
some,
stock pot here,
yeah.
nice and big so we can fit lots in it.
Yes, so there are lots of ways to reuse wilted vegetables or the scraps. Right, what we can't use for us goes to the chooks, where with the chooks I mainly focus on preserving protein for them, because there's always some vegetables and they have enough grain, but having enough protein. So if you can touch on what the chooks
Yeah,
need.
so I was reading somewhere when we first got chooks that ideally you want chooks to have a third protein, a third sort of fresh greens or vegetables, and a third grain. So if any of you have chooks out there and you're feeding them lots of grain, make sure you're balancing that out. And no need to go out and purchase more stuff for them, because you can use some of your leftovers, as we've been explaining, to help supplement their diet. So what specifically do we do
So when
to...
I'm well prepared and organized, I do a big batch cooking. So I have a whole pile of little scraps of meat, let's say chicken or something. Then, and it's either cooked or uncooked, I portion it into my cups. And if I have excess, I put it in the freezer. If I cook a little bit and I have small offcuts, again, I usually have one or two here standing all the time. I put them in the cups, put them in the freezer, and then collect over time. And when I have a bigger batch, I cook it at once again, and then I use it or refreeze it. So yeah, so the chooks is mainly focused on the protein when I'm cooking, because they get the other stuff supplemented.
So that's like the fatty offcuts that
Yes, the stuff I don't want. Or if we have chicken and there's a little bit of meat on the bones, and what's the soft bits on the joints?
So a good question there from Ping. What happens if you don't eat meat? So if you don't eat meat, then you might be getting them through things like, for the chooks, catching the bugs around the garden.
Yes,
or
we catch cockroaches. This one under a cup there. I think people are...
Hi Selena, thanks for joining.
People are farming soldier flies and that, but that's probably not very practical without prior knowledge. But I think that's
so you can have a search online. There's some ways to do that, or growing mealworms. Or the other thing is, talk to your neighbours. I'm sure you've got a neighbour somewhere down your street that's throwing out lots of meat scraps. Yes. And that's assuming you're comfortable cooking meat, even if you don't eat meat.
Yeah. You can look up the Share Waste app. there might be someone in your neighborhood who might be donating scraps. Yes.
So it's those bits of meat off cut and potato peel, all of that just sort of goes into a pot, cook it down, and...
Well, they can't eat raw meat, so I cook that down. The potatoes as well, so if I have...
They can do raw bugs, but if you're doing, you know, bigger chunks of meat, better to cook it down first.
So you can't put meat to the second group, which is the worms. Oh, and there are a few things that the chookies can't have, like the onions and a few other things you can look up, I think dairy. And so I don't give them certain things, so I don't collect those for them. Some of those things can go to the worms, but they also don't like onions, and you can't put meat and dairy in the worm farm because that would cause all sorts of problems.
But things like banana peels are good for worms, and you know, sometimes you have just extra scraps that you haven't used for your stocks or for your chooks.
Reusing one of these, so you can collect your scraps. But for us, what worked really well, not having a pot of sort of, you can see a fruit fly probably, sitting here. So we utilized an advice from Ned Sweeney to put the things in the freezer. So either a paper bag that you slowly fill up, or a container. I actually use one of those plastic pockets that's sitting on the door, and just slowly fill it up. Nothing sitting on the on a bench. Brilliant, you know. And every now and then, when they need feeding, also you don't have to go and feed them every day, which is practical. So every now and then, when it's full, so I might go down to like even twice a week. And I pull it out, and depending on temperature, I either throw it in frozen when it's too hot, or let it sort of thaw and then feed them, cover them. What it does
and we mentioned this on Saturday's feed, that originally we were chopping our little scraps up as fine as possible. That just makes it easier for the worms to digest. I know other people that blitz it. So it was a real revelation when we were visiting Ned Sweeney under the choco tree, his garden, and he talked about, well, just throw it in the freezer. You don't need to chop it up, because once you take it out and it defrosts, it just turns to mush. So saves a lot of time, a lot of effort. In the summer, it also cools them down. So wonderful tip that we've been using there. So easy. So I see, Cressida, you have to deal with a lot of soldier flies with your compost bin. And that was the case for us as well. So originally, a lot of our scraps, like the fruit and the onions that we weren't using for the chooks and the worms, we were putting in our compost. We had issues with rats. We had a turning bin, one of those ones that sits up off the ground. I got actually through a swap. And so didn't have to worry about rats, but then we had not so much soldier flies, but we had real problems with the fruit fly.
I had a fruit fly farm.
Yeah.
Absolutely useless, so that was a no-no.
With all the fruit we're growing, it's the last thing we want. So we had to come up with a way that would enable us to get rid of some of those things that couldn't be used otherwise. So your citrus and perhaps even your mouldy breads and things like that.
All those things that went to the bin eventually. I read about a system which you probably might be familiar with, which is the bokashi bin. And I didn't want it at the beginning because we had the worms, we had the chooks, but then with the fruit fly, I actually thought that's actually a good solution for us.
So somebody on the chat, if you wanted to type in bokashi so that people know how to spell it, it could be a tricky one. Or maybe you can just try a few Google searches until you work it out.
Yeah, so what prompted us to actually do it, we went fishing, and we didn't have chooks, we didn't have our worms with us, so there was lots of food scraps.
We're away camping for a week.
Yeah, for a week, and 4 people in a week pretty much filled half of the bin with all sorts of food scraps, which is a lot of wastage if you think about it. So what you need to do, you can look, all this is very simple. It sits in your kitchen.
Thanks, Selena.
It's airtight. You try to open it only once a day. You can put in all sorts of things, including meat, dairy, so your half-eaten sandwich from your kids, with ham or something, if you eat that sort of stuff, can go in with a little bit of activator. So we actually purchased one first to do it right.
So you can purchase that online. We got this one from Bunnings.
Yeah, just a cheap one. So I usually collect all these in here for the day, and then at the end of the day I open the bin, chuck everything in, pat it down, put whatever activator I have, there's a brand or the spray, put on and close it. And you fill it up slowly. It's fermenting, so every now and then, I don't know if there's any liquid, you can harvest a liquid. Oh yeah, there's some there.
Look at that.
So which I assume is equal to the eco enzyme. If Margaret's watching, she would probably know. But it's pretty much, well, doesn't stink. It's more like a vinegar if it's properly fermented. Fairly clear. Yeah, it's like vinegar. Get a whiff of vinegar. And you can use
Hi,
that
Kat
as,
Dory, just joined us. Welcome.
that's a fertilizer. You have to dilute it as well. So that's one use. You get sort of white mold on it when I open it. This one's full.
And now there isn't a bad smell coming off. Like
No,
some of you might
no.
be worried about the smell.
No, it doesn't. It's fermenting, but not strong enough. The first one was smelling funny, but I think because that was we were fishing and we put the fish in. But the other ones are fairly clean and.
So we
nice.
keep this in our kitchen,
Yeah, that's
don't
a
have
good
to worry about smells. And Katerina's quite sensitive to smell, so when we say it doesn't smell, don't think that we're just used to it. It really doesn't.
No. So you usually, gosh, this bin. You need 2 of them because this now is full and needs to ferment for about 2 or 3 weeks. I have to look up the instructions. So you need another one. So originally we wanted to make one, and then we actually bought one. So this one is made using Ned Sweeney's instructions. There's a video on YouTube.
So if somebody wouldn't mind throwing in the link to Ned Sweeney's Under the Choco Tree website, you can have a search for it there.
2 buckets, one with holes drilled in, the other one has got a tap attached to it.
Now, you can probably buy buckets like this from Bunnings, but no need to do that. If you have a bit of a hunt round, you're likely to find stores that have got loads of these they're getting rid of. Took me a little while, but I eventually found our Chook shop down the road. They had loads of them. These ones have been used for mayonnaise, and we were able to pick those up for free. Get a little tap from Bunnings and a drill, and you can make your own.
Yeah, so chuck things in. I have some old rice and coffee grinds in as well. Just rinse that. Put a little bit of the bran. All these things can, when you get better, can be DIY, but I haven't gotten to that stage yet.
Thanks, Selena, throwing that link in.
Yes, and then you should just pat it down, compress it. So I normally dry eggshells and grind them for the chookies, but sometimes if I have a few odd ones and I can't be bothered, I chuck them in as well.
Yeah, so it's a really good point with the eggshells. That's got calcium in it, which is really good for the chooks, keeps their bones strong and their beaks strong. It's also good just around the garden, helps the fruit to grow with a slightly thicker skin. So don't throw out your eggshells either.
The only thing this bin doesn't have is a seal here, which we have to add. Otherwise, you get the bad mold in and all sorts of insects. So that's easy to rectify. So, and again, I just fill that up. I usually write the date on it with a chalk, and so I know when it's been finished. And yeah, and you just rotate. Then you chuck it, or you can feed it to the worms. You can bury it in the garden or put it in the compost. It needs to be finished off in the garden. Yeah, it comes out as sort of pickles. It's quite interesting.
So Bridget, thanks for joining us. We're just talking about our bokashi bins. So you're looking at a store-bought and a homemade bokashi bin. Selena's thrown a link in there to where Ned Sweeney talks about how to make your own.
Yeah, it's not complicated.
So so that's where most of our food scraps go. So they're not ending up in the bin. And plus, you know, you can see we've got another compost container there for tissues and...
So that's the original bin, but now pretty much only has, because we still use for the worst spillages some tissues, and that it's hard to wean off these things. They go in here,
and then that
all
just
the
throws
other things
into
are
our
sealed
hot compost.
in. Yeah, all the other things are sealed in, so you don't get fruit fly and that sort of stuff, and it doesn't smell. Yeah.
And so, you know, I was reading a while back somebody's comment around why can't I just throw food scraps and garden scraps in the compost, in the general waste, if they're going to break down anyway. The real problem to that is when you throw things in the general waste, they go to the tip. They won't break down properly. In fact, a lot of the gases will get stored up, and then that becomes really bad pollutants. So you do want anything that does break down, you don't want it going in your general waste, and you don't even want it leaving the property if you can help it, because the whole point of being able to keep it on your property, reuse it yourself, break it down, or do some share waste, and it avoids us wasting resources with transport and so forth. Now, a couple of other things that we do, think about some of the different ways you can reuse containers. So you can see here some jam jars that we're using for our herbs, and at one stage we bought some blackboard paint, and that enables us to label with a bit of chalk on the top what's in there, or you can just cut a bit of the package out and put it on the side. A mayonnaise jar, this was for flour, and I make my own cereals, so that avoids even more wastage, just keeping it in an old flour container. Now you can reduce wastage even further by going and picking it up from a bulk food store. We don't often get the chance to do that. The nearest one to us is all the way in St Ives, but there's a number of them around, and that's a great way just to avoid packaging that you don't need.
With the shopping, I of course try to buy nude food as much as possible, hence these.
So that means don't get your vegetables in plastic wrapping, and just try and put them straight in your own little bags.
Yeah. When I'm really well organized, I even take containers to like the deli and that sort of stuff. We're nowhere perfect, but yeah, I try. Or when I don't have packed lunch, which I usually try to have. When I don't have, and I know there's no leftovers, which with 2 grown-up kids is kind of hard. So I grab a box and take one with me. The other thing I realized, when you can't buy bulk and whatnot, you get loads of, like this is rice flour and this is some cranberries. They are very good Ziploc bags actually, which I usually hate using and buying. I wouldn't buy them, but you actually get them with your product sometimes. Yeah, so that's with the shopping.
So thanks, Karen, mentioning you've got extra scraps that you're happy to share around. And Cressida pointed out there is share waste. So if you have a look, there's share waste programs. There's usually people willing to take that and use it for their compost. So a great way to reduce wastage. Other things we've got, so one of the worst things going through to recycling is toothpaste tubes. Going through to the waste, because they don't recycle and they take a long time to break down. So this is actually my toothpaste, an old caviar jar, and this is just a recipe that I use, which includes coconut oil and some bicarb soda and a bit of essential peppermint oil, and that works perfectly fine as a toothpaste. So you can get recipes online and then just store it in recycled jars. It saves wastage. Same thing with deodorant. So that's my deodorant at the moment. Fairly similar type of recipe using essential oils, and there's a few different recipes out there that you can use, but just rub a bit of that on. It saves all the wastage that comes from the aerosol cans or the bottles that you might buy your deodorants in. The other thing you see here, this is a loofah plant. So loofah grows a little bit like cucumber. It's a vine. When it's young, you can pick those early fruits, vegetables, and use them as pickles, or as they get a bit older, you can use them like zucchini. But if you wait till it's fully grown, let it dry out, you crumble off the skin and shake out the seeds, and then this is the product that you get, which is a bit like a sponge. And so what I tend to do is bleach it down, cut it into pieces, and that is my shower sponge. So that's what I use in the shower. You can also use that for your dishes, so really handy to use. Unfortunately, I can't show you the vine because I didn't manage to get mine to grow this year, but I got so many from last year that it's going to last me a while anyway. What else have we got here?
The cotton? Yeah, that was my personal pet peeve, is people trying to find environmentally friendly Q-tips, without the plastic stick. And I'm thinking, oh, why, you don't need bamboo, you don't need rolled paper. When I was growing up, we used a match and a little bit of cotton. You can buy cotton, but you can also grow it in Sydney. We had a lovely harvest last year. It's a beautiful plant. Not sure if it's perennial or just biennial and whatnot, but it's just keeps.
It dies back a bit over the winter, and then it shoots again, and you'll get the more flowers. And I'll show you some right at the end of the clip.
So if you need a Q-tip for some reason, use that. You can have a long one with a skewer. Then you just chuck this in the compost. You can even use this and chuck it in compost too. So simple as that. And then of course there's the issue of cleaning. So you have all sorts of creative less waste alternatives. And I think Margaret would be a bottomless source of information about that. So yeah, I made some.
Yeah, that's not M&Ms. Please don't try and use M&Ms to clean.
It's
much better to
powder.
eat. But good container for washing powder.
So that washing soda, there's loads of instructions online how to do that. You can do your own dishwasher detergent, which I haven't mastered yet. But this works very well. It's soap and washing soda for washing your clothes. I use the berries as well, the strawberries.
So a little lesson there. Haven't mastered yet. Don't give up early.
Oh no.
These
Try
sort of
again.
things, you'll fail. I mean, our first worm farms, I hate to say it, I think we went through 2 worm farms before we got the hang of it. Let them dry out a bit too much. Some people have problems with flies in them. So sometimes it takes a bit of time to get things right. Same with the toothpaste recipes. And if it's not working, don't give up. Google it, ask around, try a few variations. You'll eventually work it out.
Some analysis instructions, and also read the comments underneath instructions. So that's also valuable.
Even our bokashi bin, I think one of those, we had some bad mold because it wasn't sealed properly, but that's fine. Just empty it out, try again.
Yeah. Around the sink, of course, you can use reusable cloths. You can chop up old clothing and use them here. Brush. I bought this. It's plastic, but it's been bought 2 years. And it looks like new. I chuck it in the dishwasher every now and then, and I have a spare one. I haven't used it yet.
So Ping has asked, do we use a dishwasher? We do. And so different people have different opinions as to the best way to save water. A household of 4, we end up using the dishwasher.
I think we would use much more water without the dishwasher. I can stack it, like you Tetris the dishwasher.
Yeah, I always get it wrong, so she redoes
Everyone
it.
gets it wrong, it's the mother. Yeah, so that and this one, rinse your milk bottle. If you're using milk, that's old gardener's advice. Rinse it out, or even if it goes a little bit off, and put it in the garden. It's a source of calcium. Your tomatoes will love it.
Milk is also good to prevent the spread of powdery mildew. So you got a bit of off milk, spray it on the leaves of your cook bits, so your cucumbers, or it probably won't kill. It's not really a means of getting rid of the powdery mildew, but it should stop it spreading. So if you get it on some of the new leaves before it starts spreading, it will slow it down. So we've got a question from Ping. What do you use for the powder? That's the dishwashing powder.
Oh, the dishwashing powder. There are, I tried a few. Most of them use the washing soda. Some of them use borax. Some people have issue with that. And citric acid and salt. I think those are the 3 main ingredients. And then vinegar for the rinse aid, whatever, the rinse solution. Yeah, I haven't found the right balance in that. This is the washing powder for the washing machine. I'm more happy with that. That's the Sunlight soap, grated washing soda, and fragrance, and that I use for whites or towels and stuff like that. I use the strawberries for the fine. You can apparently use this for your
Do you want to open
detergent.
it up and we'll have a look at what they are?
And
so could you explain what the soap berries
so
are?
the soap berries are the berries of a plant. So you use about equivalent to 5 nuts in a little calico bag, and that goes, I mean, this bag should do 90 plus wash loads.
I did look up whether or not we could grow them in Australia. In Sydney, I think we're a bit too far south here, and it does take a while for them to grow big enough to produce the seeds. But somebody may have found other advice. If you have, I'd love to know if you've been able to grow them here, but you can buy them. And
so you use the shells, the one load of them for 4 to 5 wash loads. So yeah. Some people are really happy with that. It doesn't lather, so if you're used to the soapy, foam and that, it looks like it's not working, but it is working, yes.
Oh, which reminds me, the shampoo. So I mentioned on Saturday, do some of our own homemade shampoo. So just reaching into our fridge. So I keep it in the fridge, but the kaffir lime, which I'll go out and show you again. So this is a recipe from Jeremy Colby Williams. So it involves the limes from the kaffir lime, and you use equal parts lime and, do you want to open that for me?
Oh, yeah.
Equal parts lime and water, boil them down until it's all mushy, and then strain it out. And you've got a liquid there. That lasts for ages. I mean, this one has been probably half a year sitting in the fridge. I do keep it in the fridge, otherwise it will go moldy. But then I just use that on my hair as a conditioner. And again, saves you having to waste the bottles, also saves the cost of purchasing. Yes. And kaffir limes, the leaves are the main use. People will use the fruits in some desserts, but you can't really use it the same way you would a Tahitian lime. So I wasn't really getting good use out of them until I came up with this. And now I find this supplies all of my shampoo. Now, it doesn't give you a lather like you would get from regular shampoos, but it does a great job of keeping your hair clean. Right. So why don't I head outside, and as I'm doing that, I'll spin my camera around. So a couple of resources to keep in mind. Rachel Potter, the Waste-Free Chef, she's got some great guidance and advice on how to minimise the wastage during cooking. Zero Waste, if you have a look at that, there's some great zero waste websites. We've talked about the what's the swapping waste, the share waste. Talked about Share Waste. So there's some great resources out there. You might want to put in the comments any other resources that you want to share. So just a few plants to finish off with. So these are the kaffir, and that's what I use for the shampoo. Cotton plant that the cotton that we were showing you earlier. Here's a cotton plant. Just over here, it's from the hibiscus family, so it looks somewhat like a hibiscus. Not this one, this is the rosella, the cotton plant right next to it. So you can see beautiful little flowers similar to a hibiscus flower. Then afterwards you get these seed pods. This one hasn't opened up just yet. Let me look, Oh, I think we're back, sorry. I think our internet struggled for a little bit there. So hopefully you can all hear me. So here we go. So that's one of the flowers there from the cotton plant. Hasn't quite opened up. And then here is what it looks like. This one's ready to pick. So after it opens up, oh, there we go. You'll see you get this little pod, and you just pull the cotton out of that. It's a bit of work to get the seeds out. But you just pick the seeds out. So, yeah, it sounds like I'm breaking up, but I'll come in a bit closer. So that's pretty much it here. Let me just check if there are any other comments. Are there any other questions before we finish the cast up? No, I'm not seeing any questions there. So do throw into the comments if you have any further questions. So in case a few people have mentioned that I was breaking up. So in case you missed it, this is the pod from the cotton plant. And you might be able to see the plant over my shoulder. Where is it? Hard to do backwards. So, there's one of the plants just there. So, yeah, thanks for joining us. If you do have other questions, or if you didn't get to join us live and have got questions, throw it into the comments section. I'll keep an eye out for those. Otherwise, that's it from us. Have a great day.